Welcome to Forever Exiled. I am Justin, aka Tags.
And I am Wrecker of Days.
Yes, you are Tyler, Wrecker of Days, episode 276.
I was mocking you, by the way. That's
Forever.
how you said it. So I was just copying you so that we were on the same page. It was
Cool.
half mocking because I love you.
Rude. 276 Forever Exiled. Big shout out to our patrons, support of the podcast. Thank you, Brian and Michael, for joining up to our Patreon this week. Patreon gets access to After Dark. It's our podcast after the podcast, where we talk about stuff and things. And it's more of us. Sometimes it's more Path of Exile. Like last week was like a deep.
Was last week a lot of Path of Exile? I don't remember.
I think
any
it
of
was. I don't listen back to them, but last week was the one where we actually we did more deep dive into the game. But yeah. Anyway,
Do you
thank
like
to everybody.
staffs?
Who
Do you say staffs or staves?
staves?
That's how deep we get, folks. That's how
That's
deep
right.
we
That's
get.
what we focus on. Thank you, everybody who resubbed up this week as well. It's very appreciated, and we love your faces for it. Also, big shout out to people who have donated some guild points to us. I know we have a name on there. I just want, and I'm going to say it in 1 second. I just want to confirm that that was the most recent one because I am awesome at checking when they come in. There is one more. So, look at me. Big shout out to, let me get them. Darkwing Drunk for donating some points, as well as Azarus. So thank you both so much for donating some points. I'm just waiting for that map stash tab, man. That one's got to come out. I know it's coming. Waypoints, whatever you want to call it, but
that was nice of them
much
on the patch notes to put those extra little tidbits there. So looking forward to that. Sorry, Justin. I don't know if I zoned out, but did you say thanks to Brian and Michael?
Obviously.
Okay. Sorry, Brian and Michael. I am also thankful. Same with Darkwing Drunk and Azarus. I just didn't mean to zone out for that second. I have no idea what I was thinking.
If you're not on our Discord, also you should pop in there because it is the best. It's a great community of Path of Exile, similar style players. And well, actually, not style. Well, there's a very large range of how much people play, how well people play, but it's similar styles to us in the sense of just chill. We're just playing a game. We're having a good time. Let's find some nice people to chat with, and come in there and say hi. And Global 2121 is where we chat in game, and it's they're both very busy places right now and have been since PoE 2 came out. So thanks to everybody who hangs out with us.
Yeah, and hopefully our LA listeners with all.
Oh, let me get that for you. Give Tyler a moment to die and come back.
Hi. Hopefully all of our LA listeners are doing okay. Hopefully nobody's lost their house or any.
Just being affected by it.
Any of their loved ones are being affected by it. So hopefully you're all doing okay. Wish we could do more than just simply use words and.
We sing you planes, so you're welcome.
Yeah, we did. That's right.
That's right. Did. They made a call. I'll just say this. This is open beta path 1 date something, Ty. You've got it in here. So
stupid. Okay. January 2023, 2013. Open beta for path 1 came to be. So only a month difference, right? December 6th, was it? Didn't it get delayed to December 12th, or was it the 6th?
Which one?
Oh, it was supposed to be November 12th and it got delayed to December 6th for Path 2. Right. So anyway, beginning in November or December for Path 2, but January 23rd, open beta Path 1.
2013.
That's a lot. That's a lot of years. That's 12 years ago.
Yeah, that's crazy. Very cool. And we've been playing almost since. Well, at least I have. How was your week, Ty? Also, I just want to say beforehand, we started recording. We got on Discord and Ty's like, I don't think you got the right mic. And I'm like, oh, what the hell? What's going on? So I go and look. I'm going to talk about my wife in this episode, but my wife has this PlayStation controller plugged into my computer because of her and my son. And it's funny that you said that because I had a Zoom call, like an important one yesterday morning.
That's hilarious.
And I went through it like normal. It was a presentation somebody was given to me, and I said to them, hey, can you make sure I get a recording of this? I need to review it before I talk with my team. And so I was reviewing the audio and I was like, man, the recording software sucks. Why do I sound so bad?
That
would be it. So
I saw when I let you know you were using the wrong mic somehow, your face had this like jaw-dropping moment of recognition. And I had to take off and take the dog outside. But I'm like, Uh-oh. There was an important meeting where he spoke through the
I spoke through a
PS5
friggin'
controller
PS5
mic.
controller, just sitting on the desk. Had no idea. So
Yeah.
anyway, how's your week?
I had a good week, man. I'm fighting a little bit of an illness now. I think. I mean, hopefully
It's all catching
not
up
the
to you?
same thing because I don't want any pneumonia that'll last for forever and ever. And the family's been sick since the beginning of December, so hopefully it just goes. But it's just a little sick. But I'm doing great. The kids are in a fantastic state at school. The weather's been really nice. It's like
really
5-10 degrees right now,
and
it's almost spring weather right now. But we've also had some pretty chilly mornings where you have to remind the kids when they're running, like definitely walk across the street because there's a lot of black ice in the morning on the way to school. But no, man, things are good. Things are good. My wife's playing Path of Exile, and I don't know. That's basically where my mind stops. So it's all great. No, we're
awesome.
good. Like it's things are good here in the Tyler house, and or should I say Aaron house, my wife's house. Let's make it my
It's
wife's
both
house.
of you.
It's
Our
Tyler
house.
Tyler's house.
Tyler, yeah.
And gotta love, hey, a good portmanteau that actually just mushes together well, like the ER at the beginning of her name and the ER at the end of my name. Who was it? I forget. I was getting a quote for something, and they spelt my name wrong. But it's so funny. There are certain
How do you
ethnicities.
spell your name wrong?
Well, so there's certain like when I lived in Brazil, there's no I forget they have 24 instead of 26 letters, but I forget which two. I don't think they have a Y.
Okay.
Right. And so they kept Chiller, but nobody knew how to spell my name because a Y wouldn't come. And so anyway, but there's certain ethnicities here. We live in a very multicultural area, and well, I guess all Canada is, but there's a lot of times where I'll tell someone my name, at church or wherever else, and it's like Chilor.
Oh, interesting.
And so I get Taylor a lot, but from specific ethnicities, certain languages. And so it's funny, but even when you write it down,
try to say
and then the
it
reply is a completely incorrect spelling, but
that's awesome.
No copy and paste. But anyway, no. I don't know where that came from, but things doing well, man. I'm happy and I know it. Clap my hands. So how about you?
It's good. This week was good. It was, I had a lot of meetings, which I don't mind. I was really busy actually with, we did some launches in some of our offices, so that keeps me busy. And when I'm busy, I like it because I don't think about my back. Like I don't tend to have the same pain because I have had some really bad pain issues recently, and so I'm getting those checked into and trying to figure out what's going on. But when I'm busy,
isn't it amazing though how a distraction can actually keep you from pain? Like it's amazing how much
the
that
brain
does
is
actually
just
matter. Yeah,
totally. Yeah. So for me, those are really good because I can focus on work and then be busy, and I like to be busy. What else did we do? I had a quote come by. I'm going to get my roof treated for like moss and get it all like cleaned and stuff. I have moss problems on the north side, and they're not bad, but I don't want them to get really bad. My backyard side.
You're talking like
north.
My dad here on the north side. I got to like spin our city around. So
my house,
south,
the backyard,
side.
That's the north side.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Facing the mountains and stuff. So, that I guess that's the side that tends to get more moss buildup. So I'm going to get them to come out and do a big treat on that.
You don't have a lot of shade on you don't get a lot of shade. There's nothing that's taller than your house.
No,
right?
I guess
you don't get a lot of shade on your roof.
I don't know.
How do you get it?
How? Honestly, I don't know. Magic. I'm not really
sure. You've never
sure.
asked the moss, I guess.
No, we haven't had that discussion. So the alternative is like like I'm not going on the roof. I'm not sending my dad on the roof. Those are like, if you're 3 stories up back there, like get out of here. So they're going to come, but they can't do it till March because they need it to not be frozen overnight, like to get that cold, right? So had that guy come by yesterday actually while I was in my meeting. And then it was mostly just like stuff, just appointments and normal stuff. But I did play quite a bit of PoE, and actually, you know what? Yesterday I made a spaghetti bolognese.
What?
Yep.
Like on purpose?
Yep.
Wow.
I don't even know why. I got home, and Christina's week was kind of garbage with regards to some stuff going on in our office, and so she's normally home early on Thursdays, and she wasn't going to be. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to make dinner because I can do that. And so,
because I'm a good husband.
But I was like, I'm not going to make what I normally make. Let's find something creative. So I went to ChatGPT with some
All right.
I provided some of the things I had, and I said, ask me if you need some other ideas if I have them. And we had the conversation and then came up with spaghetti bolognese. And I had so much fun making it. It turned out great. I loved it. So
Nice.
Sat down with my kids and I was like, yeah, I don't even care if you like this. You're eating it. And if you don't eat it, you're eating it tomorrow. And if you don't eat it tomorrow, you're eating it Saturday. Because I have my kids, like, they eat a lot of food. They like a lot of food, but they'll also sometimes be like, red sauce. I don't know if I want red sauce. And I'm
silly
like,
reasons.
yeah, exactly. So my kids were learning how we grew up. I was like, Christina joked because there's this running joke in my family of you want a spanking, because my dad used to say that to us if we were at like a family get together and we were acting out. He would, as if we were going to be like, yes please. And so growing up now, as we've gotten older, it's become a family joke, like within our larger family of, you want a spanking? That's and I was explaining to my girls that they won't ever even understand, because I was joking about the idea of taking off my belt, which I didn't have. It's not like I almost never have to wear a belt. And I was like, I know our demographic. So 90% of people will understand, 95% of people will understand just the sound of like a belt
yes,
being pushed together and pulled apart when it's already folded up. And you don't have to make that exactly. And I was like, you guys won't even know. So we're explaining to them that we got hit with a belt or whatever else they could find. And they were like, what?
Right. We were a ping pong paddle family.
Yeah, it was a wooden spoon and belt for us. But you know what? We turned out great. We turned out freaking
we're
fantastic
awesome people.
Yeah. So anyway, it was funny. But yeah, I play a lot of Path of Exile, but my wife is also now playing Path of Exile, and I think she's probably played more than me this week.
That's hilarious.
I just haven't
wonderful.
I haven't had time, and I don't even know how it happened. It was like on Sunday or something. Logan's been pushing for her to play, and I was like, but she really wanted to play her own character on her own account. So we set her up with, she already had Steam. So we got her Path of Exile 2 on Steam. He had a key from the pack that him and I bought for him. And then he gave that to her. So we set her up on Steam, but we were setting her up on my computer in the office here. He was playing on her computer in the office. And they were like, well, Dad can play on his laptop. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to play on a friggin' laptop. But I ended up hooking up my laptop, my work laptop, in the living room, running an HDMI cable to the TV. And we played. The three of us played, I think, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night. I started a new character. Logan started a new character. So it was
the three of you on the same game?
Three of us playing through. We worked our way through the first... So we had worked our way to like middle of Act 3. And then last night she completed Act 3 by herself. So because I just wasn't feeling like playing, I was kind of out of it, and so she played with Logan for a little bit, then played by herself. But so my office has turned into her space, hence the PlayStation controller. You can see like a table right here because my chair is too tall for her, but she wanted to be able to put her feet on something. I was like, don't put your feet on my friggin' desk. What's wrong with you? So she's got a table here so she can put her feet up. And so we've been playing through
controller support forever. Just
yep. Well, we're all playing on controller. I was playing. It was actually cool to play on the couch. My laptop was, after it took me a little bit to figure out how to get it running properly on my laptop, because when I first started it, I was like, this looks awful. Like I cannot play this game like that. But I forgot that my computer, like my laptop's a high-end laptop, but I always keep it on silent just because I'm always in meetings or whatever else. I don't need it for what it can do unless I'm doing something heavy. It has a turbo setting for how it controls the graphics card. As soon as I turned that on, it played fine. So yeah, we played some Path of Exile this week, the three of us. So
that's pretty rad. And how's like, is she making her own character? Is she making her own choices? Is she following something, getting advice? How's that? How's she going?
So she wanted to play a witch. She wanted to be minions. She wanted to have her pets and her things out there. So, well, I didn't give her a build or anything to follow. I worked with her through the tree, and I gave her advice and told her different ideas or why she was using this or how to upgrade this or what to look for. And then I got her set up with a tree. So, because I kept being like, I would have to leave the living room, come into the office to help her figure out the tree. So I just gave her like a done tree to follow. And I said, go this direction first, then you work your way over towards here. And, and then just help and figure out the skills and the supports and stuff like that. But like last night, so then we would finish playing. Logan would go to bed. That kid got to stay up way later than he normally does because he was playing with the two of us. But he would go to bed, and I wasn't gonna keep leveling the character without him because we were trying to play through it all together. But she wanted to keep playing, so she would redo some of the zones by herself, and I would maybe go on a different character or something on my laptop. But yeah, last night she ended up completing Act 3. Yeah, she killed Doriani at the end of Act 3.
That's a really good boss fight. I think it's just so well balanced, such great tells, good amount of time for reaction time, and I just think it's such a good boss fight.
She was struggling through the fight a little bit when she was doing it by herself, but she said to me, she's like, I just feel slow, like something feels slow. And Doriani does have slow effects that go on the ground, so I did give her, was it the unique boots that make you immune to slow. And it's like a 20% movement speed, and then she ended up beating it. But what I was impressed with is Logan, I guess I didn't find this out till this morning, Logan had gone on to play with her because she was struggling, so he was like, well, I'll take my warrior in there and help and blah blah blah. And I guess she was saying that he died like before the first phase, before the second phase starts, and then she killed it. And I was like, well, that means you killed it with twice as much health, so like that is pretty good. Like you did a good job. And I'm telling you that 100% per person health, holy
is it
crap,
actually 100%?
You feel it, man. When you look, when you look at the stats in the party play and you see what the percentages of unique health, the unique boss health, holy man, is it ever hard. So
cool. I mean, I like it. Some bosses I think are too long, but the duration's too long. But yeah, you can. I like that there's not really a benefit to co-op. I mean, I can definitely tell when it comes to rarity.
Yeah, you get more drops and stuff.
You get a lot more drops, a lot more. And then all of a sudden my wife leaves our party and I'm like, oh, I can't upgrade anything anymore. Yeah, just stand there. Just yeah.
You don't get rarity, but you do get quantity, and you get I think it's item quantity and percentage of something else. There's two, but I don't know what it is that it takes to get the rare, because there is a stat for rarity, but that rarity wasn't changed. It's stayed at its 0% increase in the party. But it was fun. It was cool to play through, and we ascended one time. We went through the ascension using all of my stuff so that the honor resist was capped out. So it was pretty easy to do the first one. We tried to do the second one through Temple of Chaos, and I was like, I could not kill the boss. The boss just was too hard to kill. So I was like, let's just wait till we're higher level, and then we'll do the second one. But anyway, yeah, that was my week. We played Path of Exile in the evening, and she beat Act 3. So
were you guys proper level for the Chaos boss?
Well, I mean, we were at the level that the thing that you get is, I think, level 38, monster level 38. I think we were around 40, 41, and we could get through all of it just fine. But the bosses themselves are not super easy. Like all three, there's 3 bosses that you can get, and it's random, it seems, which one you can get. Really? The one that is there's one that's like a dragon type boss that flies around. That's probably the easiest of them. There's one that's like a chicken thing, but it does so much damage, and it then combines slows with area of effect damage, so it's really tough. And then there is the one bird that's on a platform, which is probably, it's up there for one of the dumbest fights, because it does this like tornado effect that you better have movement speed, because if it hits you, you're dead. Like you're dead right away. And it follows you around these tiny little arena. It's a really poor, I mean, if you play it melee, I don't even know how you would do it, because you're fighting the bird, and then the bird jumps up, but as the bird jumps up, the tornado comes down. So there's not a reaction time to be like, you just have to know ahead of time, I guess. Maybe there's tells like the bird's about to go, so I need to run away. So, and then the fact is, I don't feel like I'm a huge help. Like I really feel like my wife carried us through everything with her, arsonists, because Spark
she used arsonist.
Yeah, I got her set up with the arsonist because I knew it would be fun for her to see them. Like it is pretty fun to watch a bunch of arsonists just like bombing an area. And then she did use Flame Wall and SRS just because it's easier. You don't have to really aim anything or whatever. So yeah,
and Flame Wall would benefit the arsonist too,
arsonist,
right?
Yeah. And then once she got leveled up too with getting the hound dog, which ignites. And so like, yeah, her setup it's pretty fun. She's liking it. She's running through the zones. I was expecting, so like when we beat Act 2 and Logan went to bed and I stopped, I was like, well, you could go do the jungle area. That's what the beginning of Act 3 is, the jungle area. I was like, why don't you just farm that area if you're looking for items? And she wanted to be higher level than us when we played each time the next day. I was expecting like a freak out when she ran into that like massive gorilla with the column, you know, that part in there where and she was like, oh man, that guy's huge. Oh, and it wasn't even at all what I was hoping for. I was hoping for her to be like, help. And she was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have to. She like figured out how to work around the columns to like line of sight him and get her arsonist to just beat him. And so
I like that boss fight. I didn't find that one frustrating at all.
It was hard.
Yeah.
He hits really hard, but as long as you're dodging and getting out of the way, it was fine. So yeah, it was an interesting week for us to be playing Path of Exile and spending the evenings doing that. But
that's really exciting. And so it's skeletal. I guess there's no technical skeletons in the game. They're all skeletal.
Yeah.
You type in skeleton in the wiki. It's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Nope.
We talked about some of the other skills that she could look at, but she liked those ones. And while I knew that we could probably switch her over to Reavers, she was just having too much fun with the arsonist. So I was like, just do it. It's working. And when you have other people in play, and you can like res quite a bit. So it's not the end of
minions,
the world.
Yeah. Did she have to focus on accuracy at all? Because those are attacks that the
we didn't.
Do, right?
We didn't. I didn't even look to see what their percentages was. There's like a little bit of accuracy up at the top right, or sort of towards the top right, where you're also getting the revive rate. There's some accuracy, so we grabbed that. But other than that, no. The rest of it, I literally was like, just follow damage, just go damage, and we'll slowly move you into some ES nodes, but just do damage. So yeah, it was fun.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. And how about you with your PoE week? You said you did some of your own thing as well. I saw you posting a rip clip in Discord.
I was very excited when the
week.
So I didn't get a chance to play a ton outside of what we all played. I started a sorceress and trying to play with Spark, and then still trying to figure it out. I feel pretty weak, and that's tough. But I've been playing on my Deadeye a little bit. I think I'm 89 on the Deadeye, so I was doing a lot of mapping. And I went on when the patch came out. I was like, oh, cool. I want to check out what this, how the Atlas works and blah blah blah. And then I'm seeing people in 21 talking about how much they love the visuals. Oh, I can see now. I can see the things are about to explode, or and I was like, okay, cool. Like let's get into some stuff. And then I die to invisibility, and I'm like, all right. It was like a massive bummer because I was very excited about some of the stuff in the patch. But it turns out that what killed me was the hotfix 2. They fixed it in hotfix 2. And I didn't know that until actually just today before we started, when I read what hotfix 2 was, which was temporarily disabled some elemental explosions from rare monster minions due to them being invisible when destroying the corpse on kill, most commonly through methods like shatter, which is exactly what I was doing. And I didn't see the fire explosions that were on the ground, and that killed me. And I was like, I don't know. It kind of just took the wind out for me. So it's nice to see that they fixed it. The Atlas is kind of better. Like you can see now, I'll tell you what, the tower upgrades are way better. I did a map called Bluff, which is a tower. It's literally like Ledge in Act 1. It was awesome. Probably one of my favorite layouts. It looks super nice. And it's just straight. You just run a straight line. They added the checkpoints into the map. Bluff. And it's one of the towers.
Keep an eye out for it when I get there.
Yeah, it's really good. And you can see like where the towers are now. They've got the beams up. I didn't feel like they did the zoom out. I didn't feel like the zoom out was any further out at all. Like you need to be able to zoom further out still. So, but yeah, I was having fun. I got the guy up to 89. I still want to figure out some stuff because there are some ways I was looking online for me to solve the mana problem, but I don't want my only way to solve the mana problem being a unique. And it almost seems like that might be it for fighting bosses.
Are you doing an extreme amount of mana in comparison to anything else, or is it just something where you don't think mana recovery is really?
The way that Cast on Shock is working with my ball lightning through a map, no problem. It's no problem. But there's something when you're fighting the boss, the amount of times it's triggering is just, you just watch your mana just go, and there is a ring that you can do to fix that, but it's very expensive. And I'm like, I wish there was some other way. I have a lot of other stuff on my tree already for like mana leech, mana on kill. And so for mapping, it works awesome. I never feel a mana problem at all. But against bosses, I could, there's no way to keep my mana up.
Gotcha.
So,
okay. It seems like it's got to be a glitch. If I remember, cast on shock, it's just, I mean, every time you shock, you gain energy, right? And then when you're full on energy, then it'll cast, but it casts until it's empty.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, it seems like it's backwards, because you would think that while mapping, you're shocking more than when you're just shocking a boss, right? But I guess technically, every time you hit a boss with shock, it's shocking, even if it's already shocked, right?
Yeah.
But still, I would still think that while mapping, you'd be shocking more than in a boss fight.
I do shock quite a bit in the map, but I don't know if there's something different with that energy building up faster or something on the boss, and that's what's causing it to constantly trigger the ball light. Because you can see it. Like if I'm fighting a boss,
you're using ball lightning.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I can still. There might be something up, but ball lightning. And do you have slower projectiles on it, or whatever that's called now? Yeah. Okay, I can really see that, because they probably have big hit. Yeah, they probably have big hitboxes there.
Yeah, so the damage is amazing, but you just watch your mana. So it's, what's scary is it'll work, it'll be awesome, but the boss will still be probably about half health. And so now I'm like, run, get my mana back up and survive a little bit. But I do enjoy the build, the Deadeye build. I still need to get the 4th Ascension just because it would help me on the defensive side, but I just don't want to. I really don't want to. I don't like the idea of doing the 4th fight in the trials, and the other way of doing it through the chaos thing is I don't mind the fight, but I don't like all the crap you have to do to get the fight. I don't want to have to try and collect all the pieces. I guess I could go buy them, but I don't want to. So I'm just living on 3. But it's been fun. I like the build is fun. They definitely fix strong boxes. Strong boxes are way better. They open like instantly.
What was the issue before?
So they took forever to open, and they had this. All right, we're back. So Ty is just gonna recover for a minute here. You almost look like you're crying, buddy. The problem before was they took a very long, very, very, very long time to actually start spawning mobs. The mist that it would create was extremely dark, to the point where you couldn't even see where the mobs were. So now it opens almost right away, and the mist that they've created for where the mobs spawn is very opaque, so you can see through it very easily. So it was way better when I did some testing with some strong boxes in a map. It was a lot more enjoyable to play. But there are some other things in patch notes, but I want to know how your play week was first. Then we'll get into that stuff.
Oh, I didn't play very much. No. But it's the same experience, right? Like we
got you to Endgame on your one guide. Did you do anything with it?
Yeah, that was I think 2 weeks ago. But no, I've done a couple maps to try a few ideas out, and like it's cool. But I'm still playing with different skills to see, like, I don't know what it is, but my passion's always about like that league start experience, that I don't have anything to help me out. This is as vanilla as it gets. Let's progress through it, and just have like that one build for the whole league kind of thing. And also because of how my guides used to work, it was always very new player focused as well. So I'm coming up with the different ideas that I have, and some of the skills just aren't balanced and some of them are, but you have to try it out to figure it out. And of course, when you're playing a skill and then discover eventually that it's not how I've set it up, but it's just not a well-balanced skill, it takes time to figure that out, right? And sometimes it's, then there's going to be other times where I'm like, oh, well, I'm actually clearing fine. Like when I'm going through the campaign and I'm even magic and rares, like I'm having a great time in those fights. Everything's fine. But then I reach a boss that, like, it's just, these skills just are so weak against it, and it's just so difficult. It's, maybe there's some bossing that needs to be tweaked as well in the campaign. And I know I've received a lot of criticism this week for my ability in Path of Exile, or that I'm trying to force a certain playthrough. I'm not trying to play my way, as I've said many times in previous podcasts since EA came out. I'm trying to play GGG's way. You know, you freeze someone and then you use that other freeze skill that does lots of freeze damage and this and that. Like, I'm trying to do these combinations. Some skills don't have those combos, like Essence Drain. There's nothing that you can do to capitalize on that. Everything to do with Chaos Dot is about clear speed. It's not, except for maybe the totem, but that one's a lot. So, you know, I'm trying a lot of different areas, but I love the patch that came out. Absolutely love it. But there's not a lot of it that touches on me. You know what I mean? So, you know, GGG came out with Acts 1, 2, and 3, and then they came out with the Endgame. But their first major patch was a good, nice sweep for a lot of things, and they dealt with some skills, they dealt with some bosses, they dealt with a whole bunch of stuff the first patch, and then now this is the second big patch. But it was almost all Endgame, with the exception of...
All right, sorry, bring me back to where you were. Do you remember?
Yeah, no, so just for those listening, we just had like an unintentional 20-ish minute
20-minute
break,
yeah.
10, 20 minutes. So and take as long as you need anytime. Like, don't feel bad about it, Justin. But I don't remember what I was saying, but I know it had something to do with basically just the patch. It was an endgame patch, right?
It definitely
My
was.
concerns are currently about the leveling experience, whether it's underperforming skills or the way the tree is designed. Like, you're kind of forced to be certain. I guess not really at that. I mean, that's a separate issue, I guess. Like, just how much there is a focus on the trees that are specific to a class, right? Those first couple clusters, but that's a separate thing. But just, you know, like boss design or ability and which skills are you can use and you're kind of an idiot not to use if you had a crystal ball kind of thing. So that's kind of where my concern always is, right? The new player experience, the fresh start, the thing where, you know, you don't need a carry to do this, or you're playing co-op and your co-op partner is unintentionally using a fantastic skill and you unintentionally are using a skill that does not do a lot of damage. And so it's carrying you through, right? So that's just where my focus is. And that's what I always consider when I'm thinking about the criticisms that I currently have to the current state of early access. I absolutely loved the patch that came out, but just not a lot of it is relevant to the campaign, with the exception of maybe some of the mobs, like the enemy changes that they made.
Yeah,
but almost everything
visual.
was endgame. That and unique items. Yeah. But again, you can't rely on unique items on your first playthrough, right? So a lot of it was for like the reoccurring play style.
They
which
did
of course is extremely important.
Down, but like nerf some of the damage from some of the mobs, which I think was good, like the base mobs, which I thought was good. But I agree, it was definitely more focused on that.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure that I won't notice it until I'm finished clearing an area in the campaign and being like, oh, that was a lot smoother. That's nice, right?
Sure.
But first thing Aaron and I did, both of us, Control F river for the river hag.
Nothing's changed.
I'm like, oh man,
Christina
come
hated
on.
them.
Yeah, I don't know.
She hated them.
But so anyway, like my opinion of the state of the game is the same. I'm not the kind of player where I'm treating early access from like a me perspective and trying to experience the whole thing. I enjoy the new player experience, right? So I'm not concerned if I am or not getting to maps, but I am excited for, you know, certain changes that are going to happen at the beginning of the game. So, yeah, so I had I was waiting, basically, is how my Path of Exile 1 week went, or sorry, Path of Exile 2 week went. We saw the announcement, right? We watched the 7-minute announcement for the patch, and then there was a 2 and a 20-hour Q&A
was it that long?
After.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Did you watch it all?
Yeah, I watched it all. Not at the time, not that when it was live. I watched it a day or two later. And then I watched it a second time just to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding anything. And so I knew ahead of time that the patch was going to be mostly focused around endgame. When they were talking about some skill changes or boss changes or enemy changes, I was excited, hoping that would impact campaign. The boss changes were all about like the endgame stuff. It wasn't about.
I think they kind of have to. I think they kind of had to make this.
Yeah, they put themselves in that spot. Yeah.
Yep. You have endgame where now that's where your majority of your players are, and that's what they're doing. And by introducing endgame right off the bat, they kind of had to fix it up because they had rushed it so much. And you know that your players are not just constantly making new characters, so the adjustments to campaign is probably at a lower importance to them, at least right off the bat. I didn't even think about that when we talked about what we were hoping for. uh, I was a little disappointed that they seem to just be like hard on with that single map. I mean, when they talked about like where they were introducing multiple maps, I was like, okay, cool, for like the small percentage of the player base that
like
is fighting
attempts.
that arbiter.
Yeah.
I do like that they're at least understanding that players need the chance to learn a fight, and I think that that's fair. I think that's what I was saying right off the bat, but I don't know that it extends to only a single pinnacle boss or other pinnacle bosses. I still think there's value to having them. I want them back overall. I don't know if maybe they explained in the talking points when they did this 2.5 hours why they are so hard on for it. I saw a conversation in our Discord as to why people think they like or I shouldn't say why they think they like, but why they like the single map portal. I just don't, but I'm also not this like crazy high-end player who can understand all the ins and outs and whys and why nots. It just, for me, it's frustrating to die to something and then not have the chance to go back and figure that out. And but you know what, in the end, it is what it is. I really liked the changes. I was laughing that there was a change that said something to the effect of like, you're now guaranteed to have at least 3 rares on a map. And I was like, that wasn't on before. Like, there were some times where I would kill a rare, and all of a sudden the skulls would pop up for like 2 more. And I was like, I like just started this map. What is happening? So I thought that was a little funny that there wasn't chances for more already, but I know that they increase it, which I definitely noticed, which was good. So overall, I thought the patch was great. I mean, it's a lot. You have to remember too, all of this stuff is really within patch. 2 weeks, right? Like, they haven't had a ton of working time to be on it. So I think that's great. I mean, it shows that they're hard at it, and I'm excited for whatever the next ones come. Yeah. But I feel the same, when you talk about the skills and stuff, until I played the sorceress, I had not had leveling issues. I felt like I was pretty strong. I was, my skills that I was choosing to use or the build that I was setting up was good. The sorceress has been the one for me where I was like, this is not fun. Like, I'm really struggling to make Spark work, and I'm committed to making Spark work. And I know that from talking to people, Spark is good. It's great later. And the problem I'm feeling though is I don't have a lot of other choices if I want to go the route that I want to go. And I mean, the huge benefit I have is I have so much gold. So respecking is not an issue when I want to try something different or whatever. But it's the hardest I've had the campaign. And this is like a 5th or 6th character who has access to leveling uniques and to stronger gear. And I'm still going like, did you just die, please? Like, I went on it by myself because I'd been playing it with Christina and Logan. I went on it by myself. I was like, is it just me? Like, is it the triple health? Maybe that's why. Nah, I still was struggling in Act 3, the just normal difficulty. And I even put in our build help, like, hey, what am I missing? Like, is there something I should be focusing on? And I saw people in there giving me some great feedback, and I'm going to try some of the stuff they said, but there was also like, oh, Archmage is really strong. And I'm going, yeah, but I can't even use that skill until I'm like 58 or something. Yeah. So, I mean, cool, but I'm 44 right now, and I'm trying to figure out which way to go. This was the first time though that I've had it. And my characters are all like up towards 90, most of them. I've played the end game. I've never felt a struggle. And it's weird to me that with currency, with trade, with uniques, with access to stuff, I'm still struggling to try and make this strong enough to get through the campaign with.
But, and you're not doing it from a first playthrough perspective. You're using stuff that I'm using have.
Whatever I can get, and I'm trading for whatever I can get. Yeah, I'm not. I don't care about the new player experience more like you do. Like, I want people to play the game. But in the end, I care about me. It's a very selfish thing, but I'm playing a video game, so it is about my experience. I want it to be fun. I don't want to feel like I'm not playing Path of Exile to help GGG. I'm just not. That's not my mentality when I play it. I don't care to give feedback. I just figure somebody else will, and they'll figure it out, and they'll know what's going on. But Yeah, so I'm not at all taking it from a new player experience. I'm going from a player who is very willing to trade for items and get the stuff and try it out. And I mean, within reason, I'm not going to spend a bunch of divines on a level 40 character, but yeah, I don't know.
I hear you. I hear you. I wonder if my struggles are just because I have only been the sorceress this whole time, right? Because I like that slow-mo node that I can eventually ascend to. So I have been purely sorceress. And compared to, like somebody from Discord mentioned, when you're comparing the witch and the sorceress, the witch has all this minion damage in the first two nodes, but it's coupled with spell damage.
Spell damage, yeah.
And it's the spell damage, like there's nothing else. There's not more spell damage when you're the sorcerer.
There's a little bit, but it's not much. You're talking like a 15% difference.
Right. But we're talking like when you're talking per node, you get like 10% minion damage, 8% spell damage. And then when you're the sorceress, you just get 8% spell damage.
Yeah. It's only the big node that's in between that makes up that difference, that gives it even a little bit more. But yes, it is odd that they are kind of the same.
Yeah. So anyway, I've been going through. I know my time will come in terms of patches. Like there's no way that, GGG doesn't care about the initial experience while leveling. I mean, you know, that time will come at some point. So I'm looking forward to that. And that'll be the patch that's really exciting for someone like me. And I mean, I disagree with the idea of them coming out with Endgame with the launch, but you and I discussed that in a previous episode. But because they launched the game with Endgame, you of course have to focus on it, because you're going to do that single playthrough, that fresh playthrough only once. And then from that point forward, unless you've got a bee in your bonnet where you only like doing like the pure solo self-found experience, you're going to use whatever's in your stash to fly through the campaign as fast as you can. So that league start experience is really going to only happen once for the majority of people. And it's always to get to endgame. So I totally get the priority there. It just didn't suit what I was going for. But again, I'm excited to go through and get the, I guess, experience the enemies with the changes. I don't know what all the enemies are called, but as I go through the campaign, they made a whole buttload of enemy changes. So I'm looking forward to experiencing that, even though I won't actually know what the changes are. One thing that I thought was wonderful to see in the patch notes was there was a few enemies that they intentionally changed the distance that their spells could hit you at. And it was to prevent, specifically, they said off-screen damage. Like if you control F off-screen.
It's awful.
Right. Of course it's awful. But I love that they specifically mentioned off-screen in the patch notes, because if you're used to Path of Exile 1, they didn't care about off-screen, whether it was something they could fix or not.
Said going into PoE 2, they did not want off-screen damage.
Right. Like we're talking 2019, but if that insistence...
No, even like recent.
Oh, was it recent?
To PoE 2, Mark said that he does not want off-screen damage. I don't remember when it was, but it was I don't mean recent, like in months, but definitely within the last year or two. I remember him talking about that there would not be off-screen damage in PoE 2. And it's kind of weird because it's not even like this was off-screen damage, it was off-screen casting. And that was causing you to not be able to see that something was about to happen, and then something happens right on top of you, which was not cool.
Yeah, and I guess in my very first playthrough, when this came out at the beginning of December, Act 2, I think it was the most frustrating part when it came to off-screen. And that was the Mastodon areas, and you have those, you're getting swarmed,
but then you get introduced to those caster styles,
And I forget what they're called, because by the time you'd like rush over to them, I'm not focusing on the name. I'm just like, I hate you so much. Let me, if it was Dark Souls, I'd be writing like a revenge note and putting it there, and it'd get upvoted like crazy. But so I'm looking forward to that. And that's it. Like I've come up with, despite the fact that I think I've come across quite a few unbalanced skills, I still come to understand the game quite well. I have that one character that's an end game. I've leveled a few characters now. There's definitely some bosses in the campaign that I think need some pretty strong looks at. Like I think replicate Doriani with everything. Like the amount of time it takes to react to a tell, all that kind of stuff. Like there's some fights where when my wife is playing, she's like, what am I supposed to do? Like part of this is RNG. Like what am I supposed to do? And she, she'll come up with a few. And as she's going through, there's a few boss fights where it's just like, sometimes there's going to be a mechanic or a skill that the boss is using that you have to dodge. You don't really have an opportunity to escape and you have to dodge. Okay, I get that. Should that one-shot you if you don't dodge? Like, should the boss fight be over if you don't do that, or should you just take a huge chunk of damage? Up for debate, but obviously it's frustrating when you feel like some of your experience is based on RNG, right? Of course, those are two separate subjects, though. I kind of combine them into one thing. But so there's some boss fights that I still think some strong look. Sorry, my brain's not really working well, but that are there. But as a process, I've learned the game quite a lot, and I've now come up with a build that I really like, and I'm really excited about it. It's still sorceress, of course, because I just can't say no to that slow-mo. So if I'm not going
Chronomancer again,
it is going to be, it's always going to be Chronomancer, unless they come up with something that, because the slow is just so sexy for me. And I love it because it's like have a 20% temporal chains with blasphemy, but it doesn't cost me spirit and it doesn't have curse reductions, right? It only has slow reductions. So it's just that extra strong. And I actually think it's well balanced in terms of that it's only 20%. There still needs to be more in the game. Like, I was really hoping with this patch, they would kind of address some of these things, like there's nothing in the game that tells a Chronomancer that they have this skill active or equipped, or that it's impacting the enemies. I was hoping, so hopefully the next patch.
Do slows, is it affected by, so like, for example, in Ultimatum, there's one of the options is enemies can't be stunned or slowed. Does that make the Chronomancer skill like actually not? Because that would it should supersede or overwrite any of that. It should never ever, in my opinion, the like choice to make that decision in your ascendancy should not. I'm trying to think through some of my other ascendancy choices. I can't think of any of the classes that I've played where an ascendancy choice is negated by something within the game. I'm trying to run through my different characters that I have, and ascendancies tend to buff you. Well, they almost always buff you. That would be, that should, I don't know if it does, but that should not be affected by anything in the game. That should be always on.
I'd have to think on really this more. For listeners, this is the first time that thought's been brought to my attention, but in the immediate circumstance, I don't disagree. I think ascendancies should have that kind of permanent value. Temporal chains, on the other hand, that's a skill that I can choose to have a backup skill for, right? And sure, I get that not slowing is a part of the game, but for a part of my ascendancy to be completely, at the same time though, there's enemies that can't be stunned, and there's ascendancies that are all about stunning and heavy stunning, right?
But there's no ascendancy. Even in my warriors ascendancies, I don't think there's anything that would have the same effect where my ascendancy choice now is just negated. It's not in use at all. I'm trying to run through my different classes to.
Doesn't the totem warrior have stun stuff that would just be completely wiped out if you came across an enemy that couldn't be stunned? It can't be stunned in the game. I thought it was. Yeah. I could be mixing up Path of Exile 1 and 2 though.
Well, I'm just thinking from the Ultimatum side. There's stun thresholds that are created, but I don't know. I'd have to go through the other ones, but it would be crazy to me if you could have an ascendancy choice that was just a wasted point. Like my honest opinion is, if my ascendancy for the Chronomancer, if they choose to make the Chronomancer ascendancy, the enemies around you are 20% slower, that should supersede everything. It should not affect. I shouldn't have the ability to increase it or decrease it. It is what it is.
Oh, interesting. I don't disagree with that. I think that's a cool option.
I don't know. It's just odd to me to have an ascendancy choice that could potentially just be, okay, so in this area, it's just not for me. I just don't get to do it. I totally get that my skill is affected by those things. There's stun thresholds. There's thresholds for the, how much are they affected by a temporal chains or something to that effect. That I can totally get on board with, because that's a skill choice. You're making your decisions. It's just weird. I don't know. Maybe I'm just rambling, but I'm just thinking in my head that it would be crazy if an ascendancy choice is just made useless by something some random effect or something in the game.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. I think another option would be to, instead of, just don't have cannot as an enemy mod. Cannot be frozen, cannot be stunned, cannot
Which I think they've done a really
because
good
then
job
if you just
of.
do reduced slow efficiency, reduced stun buildup, whatever
Maybe
it
is only ultimatum where it's just that, where it's just
Maybe.
negates something.
And they let that happen in the game, quote unquote, like they do in Expedition, because it's a choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which it is a choice. That's true.
I don't know. I hear you.
Yep.
So yeah, I found a build. So it pre first big patch, I tried minions as a chronomancer.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, because I didn't start as a witch, I started as a sorceress. There's no minion nodes at all. And so, but from what I hear, even if the leveling experience with minions, even as a witch, isn't the strongest, like your enemies
at the beginning.
Right. It's difficult to keep your army around and be efficient. But either way, so
it's
minions
not much
didn't
of an
work
army
out for
either.
me.
Early, it's more like just a platoon.
Right. That's right. And then another character that I did was all energy shield, eventually to CI with despair, decaying hex, and impending doom. It was really slow damage because it was almost all just energy shield nodes, with the exception, with the exception of the intelligence that I had on the tree, because it was, decaying hex and impending doom, right, for maximum mana and intelligence. And that was slow, and I was comparing it to others, but it was efficient. It was the one build that I could go through and do everything on, because by the time I'm getting to these bosses, I have enough of a health pool where even if I do take a big hit, I'm still okay, and then I don't have to worry about life flasks. Mm-hmm. Right. But it was good, but I was discouraged by how little damage I was and some of the criticism I was getting, and seeing some of these more bigger attacks that people were having. So after the first patch happens, but before this point, one patch, I had Incinerate with flammability and burning inscription. I absolutely love the concept of just like that constantly channeling fire coming from my hands. Like, I loved Incinerate in the old game too, but it's so visually demanding. Like, I actually can't use Incinerate in certain circumstances because I can't see what's happening. So, for example, again, in the Doriani fight, when Doriani throws these red shards in front of him, Doriani's a him, and they kind of turn into a ball, and then he shoots a beam at the shards, and then it turns into a triangle. I can't see those shards. Like, that's an awesome tell, and it works great, but Incinerate's just like, no, you can't see that. Right. And
Christina couldn't see him with the Arsonist either. Arsonist and Firewall, she couldn't see.
Oh, right. Yeah. So that kind of was an issue in other circumstances, not specifically that one, right? I mean, you learn that one pretty quick and you figure out how it's all going to work. And so you come up with a backup plan, but Incinerate got in the way for a lot of other things. So, but I enjoyed that one. And then I've tried Essence Drain with Despair, Decaying Hex, and Impending Doom. And I've tried Frostbolt with Ice Nova. I think it's called Cold Snap, the one where it's like you do big damage on a frozen enemy.
Mm-hmm. So
Frostbolt, Ice Nova, Cold Snap with Frostbite. And so for all these, and this was all so those other three builds that I just listed, they were after the first big patch, but before
this most recent
patch that just came up. That's right. Which was where everybody was during the Christmas break. But I've tried, and so that's where all my respecking went into. I've tried these 5 builds while leveling, but I've done multiple trees per skill setup. So for example, with Frostbolt, Ice Nova, Cold Snap, and Frostbolt, Ice Nova, Cold Snap, and Frostbite, I did a balanced setup. I've done a pure defense setup to make sure I could just survive and make sure that I could last the whole fight, even if it took a long time. And then I've gone pure damage. And I've done that with Essence Drain and Incinerate. So that's where all my respecking was. I was trying multiple trees per skill setup to see if it was me or the game or just how it all worked. So, and like I said, like, I'm not trying to make everything just a one button setup. I've been playing, it quote unquote Jonathan's way since the beginning of EA. And, so that's what I was trying. So with this new build that I've tried now, like, I've always wanted to do weapon swapping. Like, I just love the idea that, this situation Incinerate does or doesn't work. So for example, with the Doriani fight, like I said, I'm not going to use Incinerate because I'm just going to die at some point. right? It's just, I'm not going to see it. I'm going to die. And then I'm screwing over my wife who has to res me in that one. And she actually has totems, so she can distract the enemy a little bit. So she's able to res me a little bit more than before. On a side note, not until the patch notes did I know that there was a penalty for res time.
Yeah, me too. It made sense afterwards because as we've been playing combos, I'm like, what is happening? Why is this taking forever?
This is taking forever, right?
Logan was our professional reser when we played.
Oh, good for him.
There were so many times where both of us were dead and we're like, all right, well, if you get to us, because it's hard to res in a lot of boss fights.
And so I'd come up with a tree, which was a lot of fun. It's now the tree that I'm going with the character that's currently in an Endgame, where on one hand, I'm doing Essence Drain, and on another hand, I'm doing Incinerate. And it's a ton of fun because as I do it, it just auto swaps. But with the amount of nodes that there are for fire damage, exposure, resist, and all that kind of stuff, and same with chaos damage, I was able to do that with the 24 nodes. I'm only using 23 from each, but the weapon swap works great. And a lot of those nodes are not necessarily close together, but still along the same tree path. Like I didn't have to change the base tree. And I really liked that. But at the same time, those are not setups that are being overly efficient. And one thing that is quite difficult is how slow you are when you're casting. Not every boss has a decent duration for tells versus reaction time. And so I'm finding that as I'm constantly casting Essence Drain or Incinerate, if I don't have momentum equipped, I don't have the reaction time to... I'm using a lot of flasks if I'm not CI or ES. Momentum's support that unlocks green support level 3.
Yeah.
And it just improves your speed while you're...
okay, so you have faster movement.
I was going to say casting. I have to read it again to see if it goes for attacks and stuff too. But yeah, just makes you faster. I mean, but you know, every time I see that, then I'm like, oh, well, maybe I could be the Pathfinder, because the Pathfinder has one of those nodes where you're not as slow when you're using your skills as well, right? So all of a sudden, my brain's like,
with Spark, like when I'm holding down Spark, you're slower.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And so, but then I've like, okay, you know what? I know minions pick up later on in the game, and I'm not going to necessarily need that the 2 witch clusters at the beginning once minions are set up. So this is more of a long-term plan, and I'm going to respec into it later. But again, I'm going to be the sorceress. So like I said, I'm going to respec into it, but it's just, it's minion build. I love slowing enemies. So it's going to be the frost mages, or what are the skeletal frost?
Skeletal frost mages.
The cold skeletons. Skeletals.
They were fun to play with. I played with them with my reavers.
And so I'm going to go with those on one hand when I just feel like a normal minion experience, right? Just going for that. And then I'll still be casting 2 skills, but it'll be Enfeeble and Temporal Chains. Or maybe Frostbite instead of Enfeeble. I'll play around with it. And then when I swap, it would be the, what are they called? Skeletal Warriors, which have a lot of health. And it'll just be based on the explosion that they do when they get to low health. Minion Instability and Infernal Legion. So, you know, depending on the mood that I'm in, and it's easy because all those minion clusters are already together, and I actually only have to swap out 9 nodes when I do that, because all I have to do is get rid of the mitigation and resists so that the explosion is going to happen sooner. They're just going to run at them.
Do you already have, you'd also have the reviving faster ones? Yeah.
So I have a lot of the survivability and damage nodes already because I actually want the frost mages to do well. But I mean, leveling, they suck. Like going through Act 1, there's nothing. I mean, I know I'm not the witch, right? So I'm not, criticizing from that perspective.
You're even as the witch. I think the biggest benefit to Christina when she did hers was throwing on, is it Oaksworn? It's a unique shield that gives you 50 spirit. Like just that alone gives you 1 more person with you. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, it totally would. So I'm excited to go through it, but I need to respec into that at some point. But I'm stuck on, and then I'm also, this is just, I think I still have this one character because I just love the whole slow chill thing when I'm not in a minion mood, but the Ice Bolt, Ice Nova, Cold Snap, and Frostbite. Started as a Chronomancer for that, for all that slow and chill and all that. But like that's pure damage right now. Like I have pure damage, and then I have 1 cluster for mana regen because no mana, no damage. And I don't know. I think like I will feel so much vindication from all the haters when those skills get bumped up a little bit in whatever's I really hope it happens. It would suck if they stayed like this forever. GG plays with it and they're like, nope, it's good. And I'm like, oh man, come on, it can't be me. So, but I have that one kicking around as well. But on both those characters, I'm stuck at Count Genor, whatever, at the end. That's one of those bosses that I actually think there's a lot of little changes that need to be made.
This is a very, very tough fight early on. Logan was getting really frustrated with that fight because while there are cool tells for his dodge, which I like, that part's cool, but it's happening at a time where there is way too many enemies coming in, and you're
are in the fog area,
and you're in this tiny little window of fighting, and even when you go outside of his fog fight, they've gotten into, they love this idea of these like beams coming down. It's not even just that Count fight, but there's other fights. I don't know that this game works with that type of skill. It's very difficult to understand. Am I in it or am I not in it? Because of the angle that you're kind of looking at. I get it. People are probably like, oh, you're an idiot, just move. Fair, but I don't get the depth. I don't totally understand if I'm outside of it.
They show you where the beam's going to be, but they don't show you where the AoE is going to be. And there's so many times where I swear I am a decent distance away and I'm getting right. But sometimes those beams happen while he's put chilled ground on the ground. And you're like, oh shoot, right? Because there's always, not always, like I'm finding that, okay, there's big empty spaces where I can run to. But unlike Doriani, from the time that I see the beams, I have no way to react. I see him stick his sword in the air, so right away I start just like running somewhere. And then I have to happen to run in the correct direction. Like there's not a reaction time to that. I'm reacting to his sword, but I don't have enough time to react to the beams. And the beams are situated in a way where dodge roll is not efficient in that situation because you'll dodge roll into another beam. They're not spaced in a way where dodge roll is an appropriate way. And I get that. Okay, so maybe movement is fine. But now this is a boss on my first playthrough. It's really tough because it's an
Act 1 boss. So like at Doriani, you are end of third act. You've had some time to like at least get some more skill points, adjust how the types of skills you want to use for damage, for however you've got your tree set up. Act 1 is it's a really cool fight. Like I actually really like, overall I really like the fight itself. I love most of the mechanics of the fight I like, but there are some in it that I think are really silly to have at all. But I also think to have them in Act 1, to have skills where if I can't at base movement level get out of the way, it's too fast. You can't assume that people have got 10-20%. Most players don't know.
And I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
I think a lot of people know, well, I think a lot of people have learned at this point that you go to the vendors, you try and buy the boots. I told Christine the first thing when she was like, which boots do I want? I'm like, movement speed. It doesn't even matter what else it has. I think that lasts, unfortunately, throughout the entire game, where movement speed is the most defensive thing you could possibly have is movement speed. But I don't think it's fair to assume that in Act 1 of your base playthrough, I don't think skills should be able to happen. Like he has one where he goes in the air and there's a circle on the ground. You got to get out of it.
That's another one where I don't have the reaction time for that.
I have to have started moving already in a direction away from that circle, and I can't roll out of it. I mean, thankfully, it definitely one-shot me early on, which I don't think is fair either. But it is a really odd Act 1 boss because I don't feel players had enough time to really figure it out.
Red circle one is one that is also for me. Like when he does the howl, I'm like, okay, is he doing the fog or is he doing the red circle? And so I start moving just in case it's the red circle. And no joke, 50% of the time, and there's nothing in my way, I'm not getting chilled, I'm not getting slowed. 50% of the time, I'm running and I get hit. 50% of the time, I'm doing the exact same thing and I'm out. And I think there's an inconsistency with the AoE. But like I said, with Doriani versus this fight, the reaction time required is totally different. Like I have to know ahead of time where the beams are going to be, or and then like you said with the fog, there's just too many enemies. Sometimes I'm getting like pushed
into
Like,
the fog.
a
Yeah, they need
lot.
to
It's
adjust that push thing too. They fixed
Yeah.
it with delirium, because it was one thing that was driving me nuts with delirium is when you go into a delirium, there are these like crystallized circles, and when you would approach these crystallized circles is when some of the delirious mobs would kick out, but they would come out charging and not take damage and literally push me away. So I would go towards them and just be like, all right, I'll just chill for a second because these things are going to move me. They have done something in Path of Exile 2 with the ability for mobs to move me that I don't like at all. It's so frustrating. But yes, I've had that too, where you're in that state and all of a sudden you're pushing the fog. You're like, oh, cool. What do I do?
Right. Exactly. Right. And and I appreciate that the fog, you take a very small amount of damage over time. I'm glad it's not horrendous. Like the first time you're delving in Path of Exile 1, you're in the dark and you're dead kind of thing. I appreciate that the dot is very incremental. But that whole fog section, that whole boss, I don't want to talk like half an hour on the boss, I guess, but that one boss does have a lot of things. And that's where the hiccup is for me. Like I'm clearing fine. Up until that point, every single boss that I come across, everything's great. Like it's balanced well. It's just that one boss. And I don't want the carry. You know what I mean? Like I want to be able to do it. And I'm fine to learn a boss fight. And if my reaction time is just because I'm old, well, okay, I learned that lesson at some point in my life. But I don't think that's what it is in this case, because all of a sudden I'm here. As soon as, like, let's say you carry me through this boss. Well, I guess also Wrathbreaker is one of those as well, where the hyenas first, and then all the spears that come down. So once past those two, then everything's great again. And my reaction time, all the bosses I come across, like it's all fine and fair. So to me, when I come across that, I assume it's just that the boss needs tweaking.
I think that boss does need to be adjusted a little bit, because even when you get to it, Logan got to it on his second. So he finishes Act 1 through 3, gets into Cruel, and like almost wanted to quit the game over that Cruel fight, because he's like, I don't get it. Like I know the mechanics now, but I still cannot. I just don't, I can't do it. And so I help him, I do it on my character and we get him through it, and then he flies. So like, it is weird that's like, I don't know.
It should be pinnacle, but it should still be a relative pinnacle for your area. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah, I get it. But it's outside of that, like there's still been like lots of fun things to go through. I thought it was funny that skeletal warriors that I was mentioning, right? The ones that come on the scepter, but there's also the skill gem for it as well. They have more life than zombies.
Oh,
that's weird to me, that the easy spirit reserving minions would have more life than the ones that require all the extra work. I thought that was kind of odd.
Never even looked at it.
I had a Valorb drop for the first time.
Cool.
My wife has like 4 of them. I got one. That's the coolest looking thing.
Looks
like,
very
you know how
cool.
when we do our interviews, we're like, what tattoo do you want?
Yeah, now you're getting
remember who was it? I think it was Yoji that said the Valorb way back in the day. But true, now with how like the 3 screaming faces, oh my goodness, it was so bloody cool. Yeah, I do too. I do too.
Good.
I still don't remember when I look at a trans and an og. I never remember which one's which. Like in my currency stash tab, I know just because of position. But when I see them in my inventory and I want to do something while I'm on the fly, I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean my transmute is not? Right.
I know what transmute does. I know what augment does, but I don't know if the visual. I quite often have to look at it to figure out which one it is.
And so for me, the Valorb, I'm never going to use them all. I'm always going to have at least one there because every time I open my stash, I'm going to be like, man, that's so rad. So rad.
That's sweet.
I have a couple sporadic points. I didn't organize my points this week. But one thing that I took away from the GGG Q&A, one thing I was a little disappointed with Jonathan's recognition of the campaign situation. But that being said, I know he's just one person and there's other people going about it. Just that he thinks it's totally fine, but he's hearing that there's a lot of people that are very frustrated with the campaign situation. So obviously it needs to be checked out. So I appreciated that humility. And I absolutely love, like, every time GGG speaks live, a lot of the time now it's been Mark and Jonathan, but even prior to that, it's humble with good attitudes, receptive attitudes. Like, it's not proud, it's not arrogant, it's not, well, you know, like they just have a really good attitude about it. So every time I listen to them, despite any frustrations I might be having, like with the Grenor fight or whatever. I just absolutely love hearing them, and I get way more confidence when I hear them live about things that are going to happen and going to change. And so it reinvigorated a whole bunch of positive emotions for me, which I quite liked. And I love hearing, especially when Jonathan says something like, oh, what was it? Oh, right. I think it was Ascendancy swapping. There was a long chit chat about the unsurety, and both Mark and Jonathan were like, I don't really know where I stand on the ability to swap your Ascendancies or not.
What was the reason for not? Because you could in PoE1.
A difficult choice. Yeah, but it's just a difficult choice. Like, there's so much respecking, and like even for me right now, sometimes I kind of feel like it's an action game. You know what I mean? Like, I love that I don't have to, and I totally get it's an ARPG, but just in terms of the first game, I'm not leveling my supports, which sometimes I miss, but sometimes I'm like, oh man, I love that I can just swap to a new idea right now and it's working great. I don't have to worry about my supports being low level to see if this works. Like, it's working right away. And I can easily just swap in if I want to go from skeletal mages to the arsonists. Well, I don't have to do anything except for use one of my empty skill gems, and I don't have to level it. You know what I mean? So there's already so much customizability that there does need to be a hard choice in the game for when you're leveling your characters.
I get that part of it.
There's nothing left except the Ascendancy because you have gold. So not that I'm against or for swapping Ascendancies, I just can't think of anything else. Like, if you could swap your Ascendancy in the game, then all of a sudden it's like,
you just have one character and you just can do whatever you want with the gold.
One character per class, right? And yeah, so I get where they're coming from. I get the pros and cons with it. I don't know where I stand with it, but the further away you can get from an action game, the better. So you do have to have those tough choices. And of course, I love the whole gold aspect. I love the skill system. Yes, it removes some of the difficult choice mechanics that a good ARPG would have. So, there's just not much left. But I loved the humility about that. And I loved hearing that there's some things that Jonathan's outvoted on. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, he really wants something, but he's not going to be the kind of person where he's like, no, this has to be in the game. Well, not with everything. When they were talking about the one portal system, like one death and you're done, that was the only thing that I really heard him in his tone of voice was like, no, that's staying. But you have to learn fights and learn this and learn that. So maybe the multiple portal thing would be cool if, like, for every one where there was like a unique boss in the map, you had multiple attempts.
Except that they gave you more options to have more map bosses now. So they've made it even harder for them to try and say, like, okay, it'll work here, but not here. So I think that the one map system or the one portal system is sticking around and it's here to stay. I'm just going to have to adjust to it somehow. And you know what? It works. I just don't like it. That's it. And that's fine.
As long as the enemy mod situation has a microscope on it. Right.
It won't.
You come across really.
It's not going to.
I know it's not going to. But that's the only way this works really, really well is if they care about enemy mod combinations, including enemy base types.
I think that otherwise they do care, but I think they're fine with it. I think that they. I feel like sometimes they just go like, "That's the RNG. You just got unlucky, and you got to move on." I think the one thing that makes it unfortunate in their current setup of the Atlas, though, is that death not only costs you, I mean, I don't really care about the XP, but I've lost the drops. But more importantly than anything, I've lost the modifiers to that slot on the Atlas. So if it had a map boss, if it had corruption, if it had the tier up for level, like if that was my chance at running a level 82 monster group, I've lost it because of that one death. That's where it just kills me, because first off, getting a T16 map, very hard. I have to corrupt so many 15s to get a 16. So let's say I get my 16 finally. Now I have to find a place on the Atlas where I've been able to get corruption for the +1. It has to have a map boss for the plus to level, and then it has to get a tower with the irradiated so that it becomes an additional +1. That's my +3 to turn a level 79 into a level 82. But that's lost on a single death, and that freaking blows, because that is my only chance at a level 20 skill gem. That all that work is what's required to get a level 20 skill gem. That's the only place they drop. And that to me is crazy.
The benefit of them adding Endgame now is that I mean, most players are going to play like you, and they're just treating it like a game, and that feedback will come.
My hope is if they want to be sticks in the mud, I don't know. I want the 6 portals. I want my shot at going in there, especially with how much work it's taking me right now. And I know there are people who are probably flying through 16s and getting them all over the place. I just don't have the time. And I don't always want to have to like adjust my atlas to hopefully try and work. I feel like for how much I've played, the amount of chances I've had to play in a level 82 zone of monsters for a chance to get these level 20 skill gems to drop is so low. So low. So anyway.
Do you feel, I mean, obviously the level 20 is the goal, but do you feel capable of doing the content with the 19s?
Yeah, I just want it. I mean, that's the progression of your character. The way that you push your character forward is to progress and get these level 20s. And I understand I could go and buy them on trade. I don't want to. I don't mind the idea of using trade. I've used it plenty, but like this is, for me, that's the pinnacle content. The pinnacle content isn't like working my way through the breach bosses and the ultimatum bosses and the even this new arbiter boss, which I have yet to try. That for me isn't the pinnacle. The pinnacle for me is what is the highest level of map that I can do in the highest monster level I can do. That's pinnacle for me. And that's where I want my chance to have more than one shot, especially with how much work it takes for me to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So
I hear you. Okay, cool.
Anyway,
in the video, the 7-minute video, there was a section where at the top it said the different acts. I guess on PC, mouse and keyboard, the acts are at the top, not the bottom of the screen.
Okay.
And it said acts 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, Endgame. So there was actually 9 acts on that screenshot.
But they all said 1, 2, 3?
Yeah, like we were originally anticipating that there was going to be 6 acts. So I don't know if that was just a glitch or whatever, but of course people are thinking like, oh, is there going to be 9 acts now instead of 6?
I hope not. I hope not.
There was a comment in the patch note that said something along the fact of explosion effects don't go off if the monster dies. I've been trying to find that so I can read it properly.
I've definitely noticed that there are things where if I kill the monster, whatever they were doing disappears.
Yeah. And I noticed that just while I was playing today, while I was waiting for you. And I noticed that as well. Somebody cast like some sort of lightning circle and I'm waiting for it, but then it just disappeared when the enemy died. I was like, oh my goodness, GGG, I love you. That's awesome. Now just get rid of all on death effects and we're dancing. We're dancing. But yeah, so that was good. So I really like that. I know there's a ton and a million tons of things, but again, like I'm campaign focused at the moment. So of course this patch, I'm not going to bring much up. When it comes to a lot of people were expecting EB and MOM to get touched, like mana builds, defenses to get touched, just because it's so easy to stack. Like there's very little investment required on the tree with the exception of mana regen. And if you need the mana, that is the mana regen, but people are walking around with like 3,000-4,000 mana. Like how much mana do you have on some of your high-end characters when you're not focused on mana?
600 to 1,000 maybe.
Oh, so maybe they're getting item. Oh, okay, maybe. All right. Well, I'm just curious because I'm like when people have lots of mana, but that's such an easy way to. I expect MOM and EB to get touched at some point, just because you have almost nothing to invest in on the tree. There's I think 21% increased mana on the tree in total, right? And then I think there's 6% increased intelligence, which it improves your mana as well, right? And so besides that, and those are relatively spread out, but besides that, I don't know, like you can put the rest into offense and that's really strong, right? So it's not really like a balanced investment in that terms, unless of course that playstyle requires a crazy amount of specific items or mods.
I haven't looked into it at all. So,
So the next thing besides the campaign that I'm really looking forward to getting fixed is auto aim. I swear it's putting me in some horrendous situations where I just like I get that it's not optimal, but I would much prefer auto aim to just always focus on the closest enemy. Just always. When it comes to like casting, not necessarily
on the highest
They had
difficulty,
something like that.
white mob, magic mob, rare mob. Because I've had this problem with my Deadeye using lightning arrow. I'm like, why? Why are you shooting that target when there's a friggin' rare standing right beside me? and I all of this is solved on controller if you're the type of person who plays with the second analog. So I get it. But that's not the auto aim part. That's you manually aiming, and I don't want to do that. I can't do that. There's too many buttons for me to do that. But
Sure.
The auto aiming has been confusing sometimes. But yet with other things, it's amazing. You put it on friggin' totems. So
Sure,
good.
yeah.
So good with totems. But yeah, my lightning arrow, I'm like, what is wrong with you? Why are you that stupid that you're like, that target needs to be the priority? I don't understand.
The one that's behind the corner that you can't hit, but there's 20 enemies right in front of you. So they did improve the auto targeting for large bosses.
Okay.
Right. And then there was one, I forget what the boss is called, where you're fighting on a stone platform underground and the boss walks up to you.
Oh, yeah.
And they fixed the targeting for that. So you're no longer fighting the arms, you're fighting the torso.
Hopefully they make the collision and stuff better on that fight, because that fight is so cool. That is the Dark Souls fight for me. When he comes out of the dark, the Titan comes out of the dark, I was like, oh, this is amazing. But then I think it was my first attempt or second attempt at him, I somehow rolled into the void. And when I was doing that fight with Christina and Logan, I was laughing to her. I'm like, look at on your screen where the SRS are right now. And they're down, like there's these tiny little SRS way down at his feet. I don't know if they're doing damage, but I was like, it looks hilarious that your SRS are way down there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, because I swear that when I was doing Essence Drain, it was just going right through the boss. Like nothing was happening at all. So anyway, that's nice, hopefully. And it's on large bosses, so it's not just that fight. And then it does say auto-targeting no longer aggressively prioritizes larger enemies and objects.
I'll have to try it.
So yeah, I still, when I was playing around today, which was the first time I had the opportunity,
I felt like it was still weird last night after it.
Yes, yeah, I'm still not overly impressed with auto-targeting. It's still putting me in some really dumb situations. Like, think of the fog with in the Genor. Is it Genor or Genor?
Whatever.
Don't really listen to the audio, so I don't remember what they call each other. But anyway, with the
Graynor. I thought there was an R.
Oh, it could be Graynor, yeah, Graynor. Okay, so let's do that. Instead of Gregor, it's Graynor. And so it's in the fog area. All the wolves are chasing me, and there's way too many, and I'm getting chased, and I'm trying to cast just so that I can get some flasks and hope to come out with more flasks instead of less flasks when that situation's done. And it'll cast something like Essence Drain. And I like that one for that situation, because I'm having to dodge and dodge and dodge and dodge and dodge so I don't take all this damage. But I need something that's going to do at least a slow tick so that they can stop. Like, I even have Ice Nova ready to go, and it's all based on just like chill, slow, freeze, like just stop. And it doesn't do anywhere near enough. Like, I'm going to die if I focus on that. So I've changed to Ice Nova to do all damage. So maybe I can kill them all so that I can just focus on, nope, not enough. And especially then when you get to the beams where they do the corrupted blood, I don't have time to cast. So hang on.
But okay, he's got a cough again. You're setting records today, buddy.
Well, you betcha. And I'm sorry about that. But so I'm casting something like Essence Drain that has, what's it called? Decaying Hex and Impending Doom on it. And I have like 5 wolves surrounding me, and it's casting to the other side, to one wolf that just showed up. I'm like, come on. They're all the same
weird
rarity.
Though,
like, what's going on?
Sometimes it's like bang on. Sometimes it's really good. When I'm doing lightning arrow, as I'm like running away, so I'm running in another direction, it's really good. It's understanding it's shooting the enemy behind me. So I don't know what it is, because sometimes I'm like, dude, this is awesome. And then the other times I'm like, what do I do? I don't know what, like, do I try and point a different direction? I'm not really sure what the trigger is to get you to shoot where I want you to shoot.
Just this guy right here, right in front of me. Come on. So anyway,
I still am committed to controller
quite a lot.
And that was a surprise for me. Oh, I 100%. I will not go back to playing Path of Exile with keyboard and mouse. It's too comfortable. It's too like my fingers thank me after a play session. I like the movement with it. I feel it is insanely clunky when it comes to inventory. I hate it when it comes to inventory, when it comes to crafting. I absolutely despise it. I still wish I could do both at the same time, but the play style for actually playing the game is way comfier for me. I'm old, man. Let me chill in my chair and play a game. Just sucks I have to charge it.
I hear you. Yeah. All right. So yeah, I mean, looking forward to the next patch, but this patch was fantastic, and it impacts a lot of stuff that I haven't dealt with, but that's fine. I'll be appreciative when I get there, and I'll never know how bad it was. So that's awesome. Yeah. And looking forward to not getting killed by auto target.
What's the flame wall comment you have?
Oh, Oliver, when I because I do lots of like thinking around, okay, I'm gonna try this, gonna try that. I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm the sorceress, but I'd always, when I bring up the skill screen, when I click on an active skill gem, what are they called?
An uncut.
An uncut for an active skill gem. It always defaults to the elemental tab.
Mm-hmm.
And the very first skill in the top left is flame wall. And so my son walks around the house going, flame wall, and he keeps talking in that accent.
Did you turn off the auto talking for the skill? Or do you still have that?
I don't mind when it's on. Can you turn it off in the settings? Like there's sometimes where if I'm like thinking about it, I'll turn it off, but it doesn't. Right. Yeah. It doesn't. You can't turn it off by default. Right.
Maybe you can. Logan said he did. For me, I just when I'm thinking and trying to think something through, and that guy is constantly just saying the same thing. I'm like, oh, yeah.
I hit Y often enough, but I don't mind. Like sometimes I'm looking, and it's funny because sometimes they say things that aren't in the game. You can only learn it from the video. I forget which skill it was, but I'm like, oh, okay. But it wasn't described in the video. I think it might have been Ice Wall or whatever it's called, Frost Wall, which is a lot of fun to play with too. And they have like the ice crystal nodes on the tree and specific ice crystal supports and stuff. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, anyway, that's Oliver. He's walking around going flame wall because it's always flame wall first, and that's the first thing he says, and then I scroll down to something else. So yeah. And tell me about your last note here.
I got to run. I just wanted to make sure I remembered to note Christina swearing from the other room because it was laughing. I was laughing so hard when I'm like playing maybe on my other character at the end of the night, and I know even when we're playing with Logan, Christina doesn't tend to swear. So I'll hear like mother fudger like all the time.
That's funny.
It cracks me up. Yep. That's it.
That's awesome.
It's been cool to hear them play, and man, the two of them get going. So quite often I'm in the living room. Oh my God, dude, trying to get those two to follow me in a zone. I just gave up. I was like, you guys lead, just tell me where you're going. I'll follow along. And then because I've played through the campaign so many times, I'm like, I know they have to go that way, but they're running the opposite way. And I'm like, I'll just wait. I'm just going to wait here. And they're like, where did you go? I'm like, just do your thing. Come back this way when you're ready. This is the way we're going to go.
That's funny. So there are a lot of fixed patterns to the campaign.
I don't know that they're fixed patterns. I just know that you like, just for reference in some zones, like, okay, this is the direction we're going to need to go. Yeah, I don't think I've been in a zone where it feels like it's a complete copy or a fix of it, but like I know sort of the rough layout of like, if this was here, then this was here is going to be over in this area. So, but trying to get those two to follow. And Christina, she doesn't want to look at the mini map. She's like just playing. So trying to say like, go up. It's actually not there's not many great references you can give to somebody about like, I have tried to explain the idea of your character has a shoulder. Imagine their right shoulder is hugging the wall. That concept is just like, nah. There's enemies over there though. I'll be watching her on the mini map and I'm like, babe, come up towards the top right. And she's like, okay. And then her character's just slowly moving down towards the bottom left. I'm like, other way. She's like, okay, I'll be there in a minute. And I'm like, she's just fighting. She's just funny. If there's mobs for fighting, and also do not open a chest with her in view of you opening a chest because you will hear about it. She wants to open the chest.
That's hilarious. Well, someone's not used to co-op.
It's definitely in me. I'm not used to it.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm like, that's just what co-op is. You can't open every chest.
Yep. She opens every chest. She likes to pick up everything. She's trying to learn. Like, I did set her up with a filter because it was just getting awful. for her to try and figure out what to pick up or what to pay attention to. But yeah, whatever. It has been fun playing with them, so it's cool.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. That's great. I'm glad you had a good time. That's a good PoE week for you.
Yep.
Looking forward to seeing what the pace and the process is now with patches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We had an necessarily unrealistic break, but like Christmas is Christmas. There's not really anything like that throughout the rest of the year in terms of what companies adhere to. So I'm curious what the pacing that they're expecting. Is it once a week? Is it once every couple weeks where they have these big patches? Jonathan said that there's a lot that they haven't gotten to, but that's because it's better to do things with an economy reset, which is basically just a new league. So they're following through with they're not going to delete your characters. But
why
then
would
there's
that matter?
It would make sense to do a skills pass on a new league.
Why though? Why would that matter overall? I don't understand why any of that would matter.
Because they want to see testing and value on, like, from me, because of course that's been what I've been focusing on, but they would want to see what the leveling is like from a fresh perspective. Even maybe like if they're making campaign changes, it would make sense to do it with the fresh start where you don't have items that can help you through it. You're getting it from the vanilla standpoint. And so some of those I think would make sense.
They never did that in the original stuff. So I'm a little curious why an economy reset would matter to them for a decision to make changes. That to me I don't get it. I mean, I don't actually care, but like they never did that before. That wasn't how they ever ran through their original beta. So
he said that is what's going to happen with some of them. There's some fixes that they have yet to figure out, or there's more to it than just that one fix. It's, part of a larger issue that they need to strongly consider. And then there's some issues that they're saving for an economy reset. So yeah, looking forward to all of it. It's going to be a fun process. And
I saw that Waystone tab is coming at some point. I think they added that as a note at the bottom.
Yeah, because they were hoping, they mentioned in the video that it was going to be a part of this patch, but they couldn't. It'll be coming soon. So
I assume this whole process of like doing the video and doing all these things is not going to be every type of patch thing. Like,
I hope not. I think what happened was
it was the delay too over Christmas.
Yeah. Sure. Because people were very hyped about the game. They rushed to Endgame. They figured out which skills work with which combinations. And so there were people that were really excited about progressing and going through Endgame. And then you have a large community that has the exact same thing happening over and over and over. And so when the game's not changing for that amount of time, but the game does need to change, people are starting to notice a lot of these things that are, you give people more opportunity to see the small things or big things that do need to be added to the game or changed or removed. So it gave people, by the time they came back, even a lot of people that were having a really good time were still relatively disgruntled. You know what I mean? You look at a lot of the bigger streamers and they went from like really positive, really this needs to work, to all of a sudden their videos start getting more and more negative the longer, because we went like 3 weeks, almost a month without any changes. So and I get it. So I get, like, hey, let's just calm them down, let's figure it out, let's be personable. I highly doubt they're going to do
it when you have something that's a big deal. Do it. That's why I kind of had hoped we were going to see a character or something.
Yeah, I was surprised. That's right, you brought that up. I'm surprised like that didn't happen because of the
what was the ExileCon 2 type of thing. Like, you don't bring us all together and then just be like, hey, we're doing changes. Okay, cool. You were going to do those anyway, like that.
Right.
I don't know. I thought if they do these again, I hope it's because hey, we're introducing an Ascendancy. We're introducing new classes. I don't know, something that's not just like, hey, we're doing a balance fix and we're going to fix these things. But I do get the timing for this one because it was after Christmas and they had taken such a long time off. But
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, and again, like you said, Ascendancies, like there's 24 still that need to come out, and if they're hoping that this early access is going to be less than a year,
that's the only thing that I can think of that they would need a reset on, because then you're kind of pushing people to make new characters and hoping that they're going to be using these new that is the only thing I can see where a reset sort of makes sense. But that I want to see that. I want to see some new classes. I want to see some new ascendancies. And I also kind of don't want them to just dump a bunch of them on us at once. I don't know. That's just a personal feeling.
Yeah.
But I don't know. They probably will.
One ascendancy per class, or I don't know. I was thinking maybe like
you'd have to do a few,
fill out each ascendancy every couple weeks. You know what I mean? Like,
I wonder
there's
if we'll
a third ascendancy coming for, or go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I wonder if we'll see the ascendancies fill out for the existing classes, or we will see all of the classes with 2 ascendancies first. I wonder which one of those, like where they're sort of hope and focus on. Because I think it would probably be cooler to have all the classes come out with 2 ascendancies than to fill out the existing ascendancies for the current classes. But that is also just a nerdy, I want to start a character. It'd be really hard for me to see an ascendancy and go like, okay, I'll restart a character for that. But you give me a new class, I'm on board.
Yeah. Well, there's a few. I mean, what, we have 6 classes right now?
And there's gonna be how many
I don't think
total?
we have 6 classes. How many do we have? We have witch, sorceress. We have
monk, warrior,
monk,
mercenary, and ranger.
So nothing for druid.
We don't have the druid yet. We don't. Yeah, I'd have to go there.
Like there's the druid and something else for that section, right? There's nothing that's starting in that northwest
Templar
section, right? So yeah, there's lots that haven't even shown up yet. So I'm curious how
the
go. You know what?
Assassin still, the druid still, the gladiator still, the huntress, the marauder, and the templar. So we have 6 classes still to go. We have 6 classes out.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I say come up with the names of all your ascendancies. Know what you're going to call them. Then just go in alphabetical order. Release them at a certain pace. Who cares which class they're with? Just go for it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I know you said you got to go, so let's continue. I have filter talk. After Darkers.
Look at him pumping.
Filter talk.
He's selling people on Patreon. Let's wrap this up forever.
We just lost half our patrons. Filter talk.
Forever Exiled 276. I am Justin, aka Tags.
And I'm Tyler, Wrecker of Days.
I got it there. Patrons, we will see you in After Dark. Everybody else will see you next week in 277. If you're looking for information, we got a website, foreverexiled.com. We have the best Discord in the Path of Exile community, so pop in there and say hello. And Patreon and other ways to support the podcast, you'll find them down below. Have a great week.
I love you, Just. You're the best.
You too.